very good evening to you. This is Notepad and I am Hafiz Marzukhi. And tonight we'll be talking about, in this age where enterprises grow bigger, it is important to manage their resources well. And for that, we have ERP softwares that basically enterprise resource planning. And today, tonight, we have a very special guest, which is the CEO of Rimini Street, Mr. Seth Ravin, coming here all the way from the United States. Thank you very much for coming with us.
My pleasure.
Basically, Rimini Street is the global leader in providing third-party enterprise software support services to over 2,000 active clients. And we are talking about licensees of Oracle, SAP, and enterprise software to enjoy ultra-responsive support. And basically, you want to cut down costs. So I'm no expert in this. I'll let you explain. Maybe you can tell a bit about the basis of the business and how is the model.
Sure. Thank you for having me. We are a company that helps other companies reduce the cost of their ERP, which is the Enterprise Resource Planning software. It's the core transaction systems like financials and manufacturing, payroll. We help them reduce those costs and take the savings and put it into innovation that they need in order to be globally competitive. And everybody has to either innovate today or they risk dying because they can't keep up with the competitors around the world.
Okay, so of course, because I know you're a United States-based company, but why are the businesses in Asia, in your opinion, are moving towards Rimini Street for third-party support?
Well, we have hundreds of clients within Asia, and Asian companies have exactly the same problem as companies in North America or Europe. We all have to be very competitive today. And in order to be competitive, you must develop a competitive advantage. And you can't do that if you're spending too much on some IT components of your business.
I see. So when we talk about the kind of support that you offer and the kind of savings that will help the companies to drive innovation, what would be the next step or rather the next part of the service that Rimini Street can offer to these companies?
Well, when you get to these big ERP systems, they cost a tremendous amount of money for companies to operate each year. So we'll come in and reduce those costs by 50%, provide a better level of service than Oracle or SAP will provide to these big ERP systems. And we're going to help large companies, medium-sized companies, and governments save money, and then they're going to take this money and put it into new areas of innovation. And that is a big amount of work that they don't get to fund today because they have no money to do it. So this allows us to optimize the costs in the IT department.
Just now you mentioned SMEs, okay, we're going to get to that, but you also mentioned governments,
right,
which I would say right now in this country, I would say the usage of ERP is not widely used because most of the government, especially the agencies, they are still, I would say, locked in the traditional sense. We're still filling up forms. It's still all papers. It's still all hard copies. Maybe you can share like which governments have already migrated to this sort of thing, to this sort of softwares, and how will it actually transform government in terms of delivering the services to the people?
Well, if you think about it, it's the financial systems. The government has the same challenges as any company. You have to keep your financials, you have to run payroll for your employees. So these systems are growing and they're in place, but they're so expensive to operate under the vendors program that by moving and changing their vendor to a Rimini Street, for example, and being able to free up those funds, they can invest in other things that governments need. So we're helping governments both in the United States, in Canada, as well as the UK, Israel. The Australian government has 10 agencies that are already using Rimini Street. So we're watching governments around the world look at their costs of IT, and they're making decisions because they recognize that there are other things that they need to do for their citizens, and they have to find a way to fund them. And we are a vehicle to make that happen.
Right, that sounds great. Coming back to the SMEs portion, as you know, for most countries, SMEs is the backbone of the country's economy. But of course the challenge is they do not have that many people in their organization. Other than that, they also don't have that much fun to begin with. How do they reconcile this? How at the same time they want to cut costs, they want to manage their resources well, but at the same time they can't afford to do it. What would be the natural progression for them?
Well, you know, there's not a lot of difference between big companies and the SMEs and the mid-sized companies, because everybody has more projects to do than they have funding or people to do them. And so every company has to manage people, you have to manage budget, and you have to manage time. And the decisions that a company makes in terms of where it's going to invest will affect its ability to compete. And when I started, I said, you're either growing or you're dying. And this is really true in a global economy. And it's very difficult for SMEs to get out there and compete against large companies that have vast resources. So they must manage their resources well, and they must make decisions about where they're investing appropriately in order to create and hold on to that competitive advantage, or a lot of them are just going to disappear.
Basically, they have to pick the right battles and win them.
That's right.
All right, we're going to explore more with Seth Ravin after this. Please stay tuned after the break. Welcome back to Notepad. I am Hafiz Marzukhi, and tonight we're talking to the CEO of Rimini Street, Mr. Seth Ravin. So, just now before the break, we spoke about the basis or the model of the business of Rimini Street. But now we would like to delve deeper into the challenges that Rimini Street face, especially when setting up shop in Asia. Maybe you could share with us the journey. How long has it been? What was the reception like? And how do you manage to grow from what it was then to now?
Sure. So we're 14 years old, and we started in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we spread out into Europe and Latin America, and the last area that we came into was Asia Pacific. And so we've been here for many years, and we've watched the growth in Asia Pacific as companies become more global. I think that's the big driver for us, is that companies can no longer compete just in their local market. And because they're competing globally, their costs really are important, and you can't pay more for services and products than your competitors pay, or you're not going to be competitive. And so that opened the door for the Asian market for us. And we've watched hundreds and hundreds of clients come on board across Asia. And we just recently opened in Singapore and opened here in Malaysia. So this is a growing area of business for us. We help companies here, such as Proton and other names that people know very well here in Malaysia. And we expand that quite a bit, expected in the coming months.
So far, if you don't mind sharing, what would be the kind of numbers in terms of clients do you have in this region?
In this region, we have over 150 clients that we serve just in the Southeast Asian region.
What would be their main concern when you engage them? What would be their main concern in employing these services?
Well, it's new. Think of us as a disruptor. For those who know how we've watched ride sharing disrupt the transportation industry, we've watched how companies like Airbnb have changed the hospitality industry. Rimini Street has come along and changed the cost structure of maintaining these big ERP software products. And so when we come in, a lot of companies have never heard of the idea of a competitor to the vendor who created the software. In our personal lives, we use a local mechanic to fix our car, or we might use a local repair shop to fix something. But we've never had that in the world of the enterprise software for companies. And so we're changing the dynamic of this business quite a bit and disrupting a very profitable business.
I see. And in your engagement with the companies here, especially in the Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Singapore, and etc., what difference do you see in terms of their mindset? Is there any difference? Because you mentioned that in this age we have to be more globalized. All these companies, they are competing globally. But do you see or do you notice any differences between Southeast Asian companies and especially the United States?
Well, I think it's taken a little bit longer to build a market here. because it's a conservative part of the world. And people want to see that larger companies like a Proton and others that we serve around the world have already made these changes and are benefiting from them. And they're getting more comfortable with the idea of being bolder about changing the way that they do business. CIOs are becoming bolder because they have to. They're being asked to step up in a way that steps to the table with the CEOs and the CFOs to build the business and drive the business. And that's forcing them to have to make bolder decisions.
I see. I'll stray a bit on this topic because recently I went to Langkawi, which is basically one of the test sites for 5G infrastructure here in Malaysia. And how do you see 5G transforming the kind of services you offered? Because 5G is basically turns everything into data, everything is trackable. And how do you see it transforming the business that you are already in? Right, as of now.
And very interesting because many of our clients are large telecom providers around the world who are saving money with the work that we're doing and funding 5G implementation, which is very expensive for telecom. So in many ways, we are helping to bring 5G to the business world. But we are part of that process. If a company is going to take advantage of 5G, they have to have the funding and the focus and the people to do that. And we are providing that resource by cutting the costs and providing a better level of service on these ERP systems.
Okay, so I would like to explore this more, but basically maybe you could, there's about a minute or two left. What are the plans for Rimini Street in this year and the next coming years?
Well, the plan is, again, continued expansion. We service clients in over 100 countries today. We have employees in over 17 countries. We're building our new operation here in Kuala Lumpur, which we're very excited about. And we're looking to serve more customers in the region, not just the largest customers, but also many of the mid-sized businesses that could really use our help in building a strategy and building a roadmap for their IT organization that's going to give them the kind of competitive advantage to grow their business, hire more employees in the region, and really help the local economy as well.
All right, we're going to explore more about that after this. Stay tuned after the break. Welcome back to Notepad. I am Hafiz Marzukhi, and tonight we are speaking to Mr. Seth Ravin, CEO of Rimini Street. And earlier before the break, we spoke about Rimini Street's plans for the year ahead. And of course, when we talk about 2020 economically at the global stage, we are expecting challenges all around. And locally here in Malaysia, we are facing the same challenges as well. So where does Rimini Street see itself in these challenging circumstances?
Well, I think once again, when you have macroeconomic challenges, global slowdown in growth, we have tariff issues and battles around the world. We had Brexit in Europe. All of these things make it very difficult for businesses to predict the future and make large investments because they're comfortable that they understand where the world is going. So I think that those are the bigger challenges for business, is if you're not comfortable that you can predict the future, how do you make investments? And I think we are a company that helps companies, again, reduce that cost, create options. And when we create options, we allow customers to stay on their existing systems much longer than the vendors allow, which means that they can sit and watch how the economy plays out. They can push expenses to different years. They can make decisions about where they're going to invest the money in other places other than these systems where it doesn't necessarily change their economic picture.
Okay, so when we talk about cutting costs, naturally, some of it, I'm sure not all of it, some of it will include collapsing certain positions. Some job will be made redundant. So we are talking about eliminating some of these unnecessary positions and creating new ones. So in this age of automation and everything, where do you see Rimini Street can help the businesses? Because We are entering into a time where everything would be automated, but at the same time, the issue of unemployment is still significant, especially among the youth. I would like to get your take on that.
Well, many of our clients, of course, are automating factories. They're automating warehouses and distribution. That's where the job losses that everyone is worried about. It's the manual labor components of manufacturing and distribution. In the world of, there are people who have to create those robots, have to create the automation. And what we're doing is we're allowing companies to take resources that would have to be focused on financials or payroll and redirect that labor to these very important innovations such as robotics, artificial intelligence, all of the things that we're seeing that are going to make companies better than other companies. You have to find the people and resources to do it. And we're going to enable that to happen as part of what Rimini Street brings companies. And that means in the economy, we're going to help the IT level positions. We're not going to take jobs away. We're going to create new opportunities for people to add real value into these companies, again, for competitive advantage.
So it is safe to say that Rimini Street is basically in the business of creating jobs of the future.
That's
so
right.
basically, we are not talking about eliminating previous jobs, but creating more jobs
That's
which
right.
are more relevant and would help in reducing the
That's right.
costs and also increasing the efficiency. So we only have about 2 minutes. What are your hopes for Rimini Street in this coming year, and what are your hopes for the next decade? Because as you can see, the world is moving at a rapid pace. Everything is moving so fast. You are being the disruptor now. I don't know, maybe in a few years' time, someone else will be coming to disrupt you. How does Rimini Street future-proof itself to ensure that it will remain relevant in this coming years as well as the next decade and future?
Well, like any other company, we have to remain continuously relevant. We always have to reinvent ourselves. Every company has to challenge itself as the world turns. Things change in technology all the time. 5 years from now, we don't know what those new technologies will be, but we have to adapt because our customers want the latest technology. They're going to need the advantages. They're going to need the competitive advantage of that technology. And so we will continue to adjust ourselves to the latest technologies to bring it to our clients. So that's how we continually remain relevant. But we stay focused on our goal. And our goal is to continue to provide real value to clients, freeing up capital and people to focus on these latest technologies that otherwise, if they were paying so much for these other services, they won't have the resources to invest that they need in order to build these companies in the future.
All right, Seth, we have about just a minute. For all those business owners out there who have yet to be familiar with this ERP, with Rimini Street, what would you say to them to convince them that this is the way of the future? How would you sum it up for them?
Well, I think when you look over 3,000 companies around the world have already made these changes, including nearly 100 of the Fortune 500. So we've got the largest companies, we've got governments, we have military, we have weapon systems, we have nuclear power and energy. Just about every industry that you can think of is already benefiting from a switch to Rimini Street strategy and services. And I think that what a good CIO and a good CFO will always do is look at the options. It may not be the right option. No particular option is the right option for every company. But I think that what every CIO should do and CFO is explore, know the options, understand why thousands of companies have made these changes, and see if it's the right change for them. And I think that's how you do your job well as a CIO or CFO in today's market.
All right, thank you very much, Seth Ravin, for sharing with us. Okay, there you have it, the Rimini Street CEO, Mr. Seth Ravin, tonight on Notepad. That's all the time we have for you tonight. That's it from me. I'm Hafiz Marzukhi. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.